love testing different sewing tools, and while I enjoy most of my purchases, from time to time I will come across a tool that I do regret buying. Luckily, those bad purchases are very rare, and in this video I want to share a few of my recent purchases that I bought, tried, tested, and regretted buying. So we will start with an item that every sewist has, and it's a measuring tape. Now you may be thinking, there's nothing wrong with a measuring tape, but apparently if you use one long enough, the long edges stretches out. So let's do an experiment, and I want you to do it with me. So grab your measuring tape and a ruler. This is a measuring tape that I had for a very long time, probably a decade. And you can see by looking at the edge that it's not laying flat and looks wavy, indicating that it's slightly stretched out. If we measure it along the plastic ruler, we can see that the tape measurements do not align with the ruler, and the higher the measurement number, the higher the mismatch, resulting in about 2 mm mismatch at 20% mark, which is about 1% stretch out. I also have a brand new, never measured anything measuring tape, so let's see how it looks compared to the ruler. We can see that the brand new tape lays completely flat on the table, hence indicating that it's not stretched out. And if we measure this tape along the edge of the ruler, you can see that it aligns perfectly with the measurements indicated on the ruler. Now, I wouldn't call 1% stretch out very significant, and most likely you wouldn't feel it in your designs, but if you want really precise measurements, if you want really accurate measuring results, it's a good idea to switch your measuring tape from time to time, and just make sure that you're using tape that is not stretched out. And extra tip, if you want to buy a measuring tape that will not stretch out, look for measuring tape that has fiberglass. I will link a few options in the description box down below. Moving on with the list of bad sewing tools, we have marking tools. Now, I will tell you this, the more marking tools that I've tried, the more I sew, the more I realize that there is nothing better than a simple piece of chalk and a simple piece of soap. With all other marking tools, the disappearing ones, the washable ones, the heat erasable ones, it's very often a gamble whether the results will be worth it. My most notoriously bad marking tool that I bought recently was a disappearing one, which is supposed to disappear in like 24 hours, but it also came with an eraser, which is supposed to erase the disappearing marker much faster. Now, the main issue is that the eraser didn't do a very good job, and it didn't erase the marker well enough, especially on thicker, fuzzier fabrics. Not only that, but the second the marker senses any heat around it, maybe I'm pressing the fabric next to the marker, or maybe it catches a little bit of steam, the marker intensifies again and reappears. So while I was using this marker, I was stuck in never-ending cycle of marking, trying to erase, heating, pressing, then trying to erase again, and just doing everything to make it disappear. Working this way took me way longer than it would have if I had used like a simple piece of chalk or soap. I have a very similar story with the heat erasable markers that disappear from the heat of the iron. And while this works excellent, if the fabric is not washed once the garment is finished and you go into the freezing temperatures, the marker will reappear. This is a test that you can do at home. Take a piece of fabric, use the heat erasable marker, make it disappear, and then stuck it in the freezer for a few minutes, and you will see that the lines reappear. Now, typically I use these markers because I'm filming tutorials and I want the lines to be very clearly visible on the camera, which may not happen if I'm using a piece of chalk or soap. But just know that when I'm not filming, most likely for marking, I am using a piece of chalk. My favorite is using a chalk marking wheel because it produces very thin, very clear line. When I need extra accuracy, I will be using a chalk pen, or if I'm working with fuzzy fabrics, with wool fabrics, I will grab a simple piece of soap. And with these simple marking tools, I had never had any issues marking the fabric and making it disappear. Now with this next sewing item, there's nothing wrong with it. It does work, but you just don't have to buy it. And it's a spray starch. In sewing, I mostly like to use the spray starch if I'm working with knit fabric and the edge starts to curl up, making it very difficult to accurately cut the fabric and very frustrating to sew it later on. So what I do is I take spray starch and spray it a little bit on the edge, then press it with the iron, and it flattens the edge of the fabric, makes the fabric a little bit sturdier and easier to work with. And once I'm done sewing, once I create the garment, I put it in the washing machine. The water dissolves the starch, leaving no marks. So this item works. However, you simply don't have to buy it because it's very simple to make at home at the fraction of the cost. All you need to do is dissolve about 2 spoons of starch in a glass of water, put it in a spray bottle, shake it very well, and this is it. You have created your own spray starch. In this way, you have created spray starch that is very cheap versus compared to where I live, buying a bottle of spray starch is about 3 to 4 euros. And making it at home is essentially free because 2 spoons of starch cost very little. Not only that, but when you make your own spray starch, you can make it stronger or less strong depending on how sturdy you want to create the fabric. So again, there's nothing wrong with buying spray starch in the store, but just remember that you can very quickly, easily make it at home at the fraction of the cost. Now this next item, I would not have believed it if it didn't happen to me personally, but now that it has, I want to tell you the story. And it's a story about bad quality threads. So I sew a lot of knit fabrics, I wear a lot of knit garments, and so I have a serger to make the process faster and easier. The serger that I have is very nice. I had it for a bit over a year. But from time to time, I would come across a very interesting issue that I could not find a solution on Google. Sometimes when I was serging, the thread from the right needle would sort of jump out of the seam and then re-enter the seam again after like 20-30 stitches. This would not happen every single time, and this would happen with very different fabrics, and I just couldn't find what is wrong with it because I threaded the serger properly, I was using the right tension settings, I have been using all correct settings that I can set, and I've tried so many different things, and yet from time to time this issue would reappear. And then a while back, while I was serging, this happened again and I had the epiphany. It was the thread. Well, it turns out that I was using very old serger threads that I had been using ever since I bought my first serger many years ago. I do remember when I was buying, those threads were really cheap, and probably after multiple years of sitting in the storage, they got older, and probably sitting lots of years in the storage did not help with the quality. And the thing is that the minute I switched to high quality threads on my serger, I was still working on the same project, I was still using the same tension settings, I was still using all other same settings, the issue completely disappeared. Now I had a few other colors of the same bad quality thread that I bought before, so I tested this theory, and every single time I was using bad quality threads, the same issue would happen. And typically when we're talking about bad quality thread, you would expect that the thread either breaks when you're sewing, or if you're starting wearing the garment, the seam is very weak. But this experience for me personally proved that sometimes the bad quality thread may cause very strange issues, and just to be sure, it's a better idea to invest in good quality threads so that you're sewing without any headaches. So here are all sewing tools that I wanted to share in today's video. Let me know in the comments what is your worst sewing tool purchase. Thank you for watching today, and I will see you next time. Bye!